Hi, my name's Hazem Gaber, and today we're going to be talking about the New York Times lawsuit against Microsoft Corporation and OpenAI. So, if you remember from my last video, we were talking about ChatGPT and what ChatGPT is, and it's basically bot that you can talk to, and it gives you a bunch of replies. So you can say, "Hi, ChatGPT." Oops. See, I misspelled it. I did it on purpose so I could see if you were paying attention. But it's really smart. And the reason it's smart is because it's designed so that it can predict what the next best word is. So if you say hi chat GPD, its brain thinks about what should I reply with first. So the best word to reply was hello, and then the best next word was it, and then looks, and then like blah 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 blah. So how did ChatGPT get to be so smart? And the answer is they took billions of articles and papers from Wikipedia and the internet and everywhere else, and they dumped it into a server, and the server software started to analyze patterns in the language. And we call that a large language model. And so ChatGPT was trained to speak like a human being by analyzing all the texts that have been written, and not just newspapers, but like Shakespearean plays and things. So I could say to ChatGPT, write me an article in the form of a Shakespeare play, and ChatGPT will copy the style of Shakespeare. So it can copy any style. So now Microsoft Bing search did the same thing. They took they made a partnership with ChatGPT and they added it to a search engine. So now Bing can help you search but it's using the ChatGPT brain. So the New York Times says so let's go back to copyright law. If if I write a book, you can't copy that book because it's copyright Hasm Gaber. If I write a newspaper article, you can't copy that newspaper article. But you can um now there's a question of fair use. So if I write a book, you can't take that book like a Harry Potter book and turn it into a Harry Potter movie or screenplay or song or costume because that's considered a derivative work. So you've taken a a work and you've made a derivative work out of it. You've stolen the copyright, but you can take a work and do what's called a transformation. So you can review a book, you can review a movie, you can summarize it, um, those kinds of things. Those are allowed. So the the lawsuit essentially says that ChatGPT, because everything that ChatGPT creates is coming as a derivative of the data that's in it. It doesn't actually know anything. It doesn't have a brain. So if you ask it a question, it's gonna think back to all the things that it knows, including a whole bunch of New York Times articles, and spit out something. So if I say who is George Clooney, it's gonna think about articles possibly from Wikipedia, possibly from the New York Times, possibly from other places. And so that's essentially the lawsuit is that Microsoft and ChatGPT or OpenAI took artificial and created artificial intelligence products and they used the large language models and they did so by copying millions of copyrighted news articles. So, and not only did they do that, used they gave preference to the New York Times content. And if we think about this, like, write me an article in the format the New York Times, it will actually do that. So this is not an article. I didn't even give it a topic, but this is an article that sounds like a New York Times reporter wrote it. And the only way it could do this is by reading a whole bunch of New York Times articles. And now, does that make it copyright infringement or not? That's the real question. So, if we look at the lawsuit, the New York Times is saying that this intellectual property belongs to them, and they did it without permission. And the New York Times tried to make a settlement to help them uh, keep running in exchange for some money, but they refused, or the deal fell apart. So it looks like Microsoft has used the OpenAI platform on Azure, which is their cloud product. So now they're saying 18,000 companies have already started using the product. So there's a significant amount of money being made by Microsoft and by OpenAI, and the New York Times feels like they should get their cut. And obviously, the New York Times says they employ 5,800 people, and 2,600 of them just to write articles. So that's a lot of people. And they talk about their paywall. So 100 million people read the New York Times articles every week. And the Times does not license, it requires you to have permission to use a any of their content. You have to pay a royalty, for example. But yet, OpenAI is based on copyright infringement. So, according to the New York Times, OpenAI started in December 2015 as a non-profit, and it had $1 billion in seed money, including Elon Musk and Reid Hoffman and a bunch of other people. So even though they took all this money, they said that they were doing research and the goal was to advance artificial intelligence without returning a financial impact. So they were not planning to make a profit when they started. They just wanted to create a product that maybe uh, could be used by other tech companies. Of course, uh, pretty quickly they became a multi-billion-dollar business, and they started licensing things. So now they're saying they're worth close to 90 billion, with a enterprise value as high as 90 billion and revenues to be over 1 billion. And so GPT-4 is way more powerful than GPT 3.5, for example. So, over 80% of Fortune 500 companies are now using ChatGPT for one purpose or another. And Microsoft has been commercializing ChatGPT since 2019. And it's a very, very important tool for them. And they're the only cloud computing provider for OpenAI. You can't use OpenAI on on Amazon Cloud or IBM Cloud or AWS. You can't use it anywhere else. Just the only place where you can use it is on Azure. So they're upset because according to Microsoft, the system uses 285,000 CPUs, 10,000 GPUs, and 400 gigabits per second for each server. So it's a crazy supercomputer that's running this thing. And and the CEO of Microsoft acknowledged how that they are deeply involved with the product. So uh, that's why they're being blamed or being held liable for the copyright infringement as well. So how I think we're gonna stop here and we'll go to part 2 next.